into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls. And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts. That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds.
B-A-P.
Killer of Baton Rouge? I knew me, I was gonna have some fun. You shut.
Hey, what's going on? You're here with Emil, and what we got going on is an attack on education. Outside of education, our democracy is at stake too. So, I've been doing plenty of quote unquote protesting in 2025, and now I am planning on doing some more at the same time. For mental health reasons, I kind of took a step back because you know it's hard, man, and I'm not gonna lie. It's like a lot of times we get this fatigue going on, where it's like you're telling people this, and it's like they don't listen, and then they complain about what's going on, but they could have did something earlier. So, with that being said, this is trying to spotlight and keep on informing people so that way we can come up with an adequate plan to be able to counteract everything that's going on. So outside of the educational portion, Epstein is a big thing too. So the Epstein files, a lot of them will come out. If you didn't see, they say basically it was over 6,000 files that were given, but only 3,000 were presented. So it's not really following the law that was given on December 19th, with the legislation being that we were supposed to get full disclosure on what's going on with the Epstein thing. So what I'm saying is that is a big deal because that is kids that were being violated, and not protecting our children is extremely one of the biggest things that we should not ignore, and also educating them because eventually they will be the person to essentially take over the mantle. And there's been plenty of arguments on what the kids should focus on, and what I'm saying is if you were to dumb down the education system, it's going to make it easier for the next Trump to continue doing what he's doing, because I don't think that, honestly, I feel like there's going to be somebody worse than him, because what happens is once one person sees something, the next person basically does the same thing, but just 10 times worse. Hoover was our first Trump, and then another person who was similar to Trump will be Tricky Dick. Tricky Dick is also, what's his name? Richard Nixon. They used to call him Tricky Dick because he used to be very tricky. But Richard Nixon was another person. But in order for us to understand what's going on with the present, we have to understand what went on in the past. So I would like to go in deeper details about what went on in 1920s when it come down to the Great Depression and what caused it, and then also who brought us out of it. FDR. He brought us out of it, and instead of him only having 2 terms, he had like 3 going on 4, and he died in his 4th term. And he has over 3,000 executive orders. If you want to look at the executive orders that were all in the past, we have a library in our playlist where you can check out all of the executive orders that you really want to look at, from all the way from Washington all the way to present. We do need to do some more FDR, but he has over 3,000 executive orders. So that's something that it's like, we plan on doing it. We will do it. At the same time, there's analyzing Donald Trump's executive orders all through 2025. If that is something that you think that you would like to pay attention to, which I recommend everyone paying attention to, because a lot of what he's doing, instead of going through the proper channels, he's basically bucking the system and using executive orders to do it. But that's neither here nor there. And at this point, let's go ahead and get into what we came here for. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be watching 4 videos that is about education. All right, a couple of them are about Linda McMahon and her trying to dismantle it, and another part of it is just the billionaires kind of taking aim on it, as far as them trying to cut a lot of the funding for education and redirect it to billionaire tax cuts, as we all know. So let's go ahead and dive into it because, um, yeah. So this very first one we're going to be watching is a billionaire bully who wants to turn Texas into a Christian theocracy.
Lived in Texas, and I've lived here over a quarter century now. It's becoming clear to me that there's something off with our democracy. That the democratic process isn't quite reflecting what people in Texas want. And I wanted to know who had the ear of government, who was calling the tunes. And that's really what brought me to Tim Dunn. My name is Russell Gold. I'm a staff writer at Texas Monthly, and I wrote The Billionaire Who Runs Texas. If you were to ask most people, do you know who Tim Dunn is? The answer would be no. Going into reporting the story, I didn't even know that much about Tim Dunn. Tim Dunn is a billionaire. He is a lay preacher. He's an oil and gas executive. He's involved in media. He helped found a private K-12 school. He's involved in so many different things. One of the first things I did is I went on to the Secretary of State's website and asked what organizations Tim Dunn was affiliated with and had been affiliated with. I began to feel a little like Charlie Day in that meme where, he's sitting there in front of his cork board and there's red lines everywhere, because there were just so many different things that Tim Dunn was involved with. But essentially they're all about the same thing, which is influencing the public, which is steering politics, which is accomplishing his religious worldview through politics. Tim Dunn and his orbit have been very patiently and methodically building up a political machine in Texas to try to push the state to the right and to try to create what some people told me is something resembling a theocracy. For the last 2 years, in 2022 and 2023, Tim Dunn has given about $10 million to one particular political action committee called Defend Texas Liberty, which really have been targeting centrist Republicans. He basically goes to members of the state legislature and says, we want you to vote this way on certain votes, and we're going to score you based on that. And if your score is not very good, we're going to not just find someone to run against you, but we're going to make sure they're very well financed. And so I interviewed and talked to a number of people who faced this. It was so ugly, and there was so much money just coming out of nowhere that they were really faced with a choice, either just to give up or to acquiesce. The bathroom bill several years ago, SB 8 basically abolishing abortion before the Supreme Court even ruled on Roe v. Wade, the bills that had to do with drag shows and transgender politics, the push for vouchers. A lot of the issues we've seen over the last 3-4 sessions have been driven by Tim Dunn and his allies.
So one thing I'm hearing is basically another person who's bullying people with his money. We all seen that when it came down to Elon Musk, who did it in the very beginning, where he put billions of dollars into a campaign in order for Trump to win, because he felt slighted by Biden. And then after that, it's kind of funny how the electrical vehicles are no longer the thing, which somebody with a brain would have realized. But at the same time, what people do is they feel that money is real, and they'll sell out their morals. And then by the time they realize it, it's too late. Because, no one cares about what you're talking about if you've been selling your soul already. That's not something, people don't care about that. It's like you've been sold your soul. Everything you've done has been aligned to this man who is not always with you. And he's I mean, in my opinion, the old people, they're like dinosaurs in a sense where this made sense. This is always going to make sense. Oil is the only way. And that's essentially what I see when I see someone of his age who's making life decisions for people not even a quarter of his age. I mean, if you look at him, Tim Dunn, if you look in his face, I'm pretty sure he's pushing 75 easy. You know, he's 75 easy. You know, or he's not taking care of himself and he's 60 something. But he looked like he's 75, pushing 80, and someone a quarter of his age is under 20. And what I'm saying is, it does not look like he cares about their well-being. You know, so because I'm not going to be here to see it, so that makes it easier. So let's go ahead and continue.
This isn't just about a civil war within the Republican Party of Texas. It's really about what Texas is going to look like for the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years. Tim Dunn has made it clear that he believes this should be a Christian-run government. Texas is a Christian state and should be run by Christians, which is a remarkable statement in a state like Texas, which has millions of people who are not practicing Christians. What would that look like if his allies gain control of the Texas legislature? I think the answer is that we would have a second class of citizenry, a large group of Texans who were not represented, who were second-class citizens within the state. And that doesn't really look like a democracy anymore. You can read this story in the March 2024 issue of Texas Monthly or at texasmonthly.com.
Yeah, so my main thing about dealing with people who are really so, like, I guess you can say, fixed on making things happen the way they want to make things happen is the fact that they don't care about anyone else but their own family and themselves. That's one reason why I'm a strong component in really being about the community more so than anything, and then, you know, kind of spotlighting people's hypocrisy, because my thing is, if you are willing to sell out your family, well, if you're willing to sell out the world for your family, in theory, we all can understand, but at a certain point of time, it is detrimental to the whole. And what I mean by that is, you know, your family's great. Your family. But when you think about the human aspect of our family, you know, that is a different topic, because what happens is I'm not worried about dealing with any other issue outside of my family. So therefore, when we speak of total destruction, you don't realize it until it happens, because you only think about your family, not the whole. And that's what's going to happen eventually, because right now we're on the brink of World War III, you know? So right now we can do something about it, but once that start happening, a lot of what we did to make these progresses is going to scroll back. Hopefully we're on the right side of history. But yeah, so this next video is billionaires are dismantling public education in Texas. This is by More Perfect Union. All right, let's go ahead and dive into it.
You know, there's nothing more Texan than Friday Night Lights.
That's the heartbeat of our community, is our public schools.
Schools bring us together in a time when we are so polarized and tribalized.
Here in Texas, public education is facing an existential threat. Vouchers that will pull taxpayer money out of public schools and into private schools.
Lawmakers still going back and forth over school vouchers.
That would provide taxpayer money to families for private school tuition.
This voucher bill will eventually destroy public schools. I give it 10 years.
The new plan is part of a nationwide effort to defund public schools under the guise of choice, pushed by billionaire activists and Republican governors like Greg Abbott.
What's happening in Texas will be coming to a school district near you.
We're fighting for school choice, which really is the civil rights of all time in this country.
But there's a pro-public education backlash emerging in Texas.
It's robbery and theft.
Vouchers are not for everybody. If they were for everybody, no one would be here protesting them.
I have been in Bastrop, oh my goodness, for 27 years. My older son was a year old when we moved here.
Tony Malone teaches kindergarten in Bastrop, a community about a half-hour east of Austin.
We're Central Texas. We're Friday Night Lights, football games and basketball games, volleyball. The community really comes together around our schools out here. For most of our kids, it's the only thing they have. We don't have a YMCA. We don't have recreation centers and places for our kids to go after school. They depend on these programs in our schools.
In recent years, Texas districts have been facing devastating budget cuts. The funding that the state of Texas commits for each student, the basic allotment, hasn't increased since 2019, though it's likely the legislature will slightly increase it this year. In the midst of all of this, Governor Greg Abbott and the Texas legislature are moving forward with a controversial plan that could eventually gut public school funding. The voucher policy would give families more than $10,000 to use for private school tuition and supplies per child, even if they already send their kids to private schools.
Vouchers take money that could go to public school.
So if that really escaped anyone's brain, like, it's really a tax like break for the super rich who are sending their kids to private school. Like, I'm one of those people that I would prefer having my child in a public school over a private school, because I feel that private school is really a waste of money if our public schools are at a certain point of, being better, and what I mean by that is, if we had better public schools, there's really no reason for a private school. The only real reason why I feel that way is because when you have all these people going to private schools, you're deducting the number of students that are on the head count that are really used to get the school the funding to take care of the students. And by us providing this break for the private school foundation, I'm gonna say it like that, their foundation, it strengthens them, but then special education is not even taken care of. Then they can discriminate against your child. They can kick you out for whatever reason. They're not monitored or held by any kind of standard. Just because it is a private school that you are in does not necessarily mean that it's held to a certain standard. The standard is whatever the donors of that private school would like. And a lot of times that's not always for the betterment of society. If we are against the Jewish population, then we don't have to teach about the Holocaust. We don't have to teach about African American studies. We don't have to teach about Asian as far as the camps that they were put into during World War II. We don't have to talk about just the assimilation and the dismantling of the Native Americans that were here before we all got here. We don't have to learn about that, and therefore we're going to be with this false idea of what really happened. Everything that we knew that was being true is no longer going to be seen as true. It's going to be seen as that propaganda. It's going to be seen, it's a lot of things, but yeah, let's go ahead and talk more about the voucher program. But yeah, one more thing about the voucher program. This is not something new. They talked about this in the 1960s when they were about to have people go to black people and colored people go into the school system. They then talked about this privatization of school with these vouchers, because the white population did not want to have their kids next to the black population. So this is nothing new. So let's go ahead and dive more into it.
And give that money to unaccountable private schools for the wealthy few.
School districts will get less money if they have lower enrollment. In the first year alone, Texas schools could lose $250 million as a result of vouchers, and the program could cost taxpayers more than $10 billion by 2030. It's part of the reason voters and even lawmakers have rejected vouchers over and over again for decades.
The first voucher bill was proposed in the Texas legislature in 1957. That first voucher scam was a deliberate attempt to resegregate public schools, to allow white parents to take their kids out of newly integrated public schools and send them to white-only private schools. Vouchers have been brought up every decade since 1957, and every time they've been brought up here in Texas, they've failed because Texans on both sides of the aisle have rejected these proposals.
The current governor, Greg Abbott, has made vouchers the top priority of his administration. But until this year, Republicans from rural areas have joined with Democrats to defeat them.
There's always been this little thing about vouchers, and pretty much since Abbott got in office.
Governor Abbott just called for a fourth special session to pass school vouchers.
The fourth special session in Austin came to a close and still with no deal on school vouchers.
Greg Abbott has put all his chips on this one issue. He's invested millions of dollars. He's barnstormed the state. He has bullied and bribed lawmakers. He has done everything that he could possibly do to get this bill passed.
Now he's got a lot of out-of-state backers, people who are, really pushing this agenda.
Vouchers are backed by big money. Former Education Secretary Betsy DeVos has dumped millions into pro-voucher policies all over the country, while oil and gas tycoons like Tim Dunn and Ferris and Dan Wilkes have bankrolled pro-voucher politicians in Texas.
It's not really Greg Abbott or Dan Patrick pushing this scam. It is billionaire mega donors who are trying to dismantle public education in our state.
One billionaire in particular helped change the game in the Lone Star State.
An East Coast billionaire named Jeff Yass, who gave Greg Abbott the single largest donation in Texas history.
Jeff Yass is this guy.
The left came up with this idea of income inequality. It's like, what are you talking about?
Jeff Yass gave Greg Abbott $12 million in total last year to get this voucher scam passed.
In the end, nearly a dozen pro-voucher candidates endorsed by Abbott won their primaries. Abbott and his allies have pitched the plan as a way to help low-income students the most.
The wealthiest of wealthy are not the school choice recipients being served. It is income vulnerable and special needs related students.
But under the voucher plan, up to 20% of the spots in the program in the first year would be available to anyone, even the world's richest man.
Elon Musk is a Texas resident, so would he theoretically be eligible to apply for these funds? Yes.
In North Carolina, recent reporting shows that more than 40% of voucher recipients come from families that made too much money to qualify when the program was first created. In Florida, nearly 70% of students receiving vouchers were already attending private schools. And in Arizona, vouchers have drained the state budget.
In every state that has tried vouchers, the majority of the money ends up going to wealthier families who are already sending their kids to private school. And I worry that's what will happen in Texas.
The more money that's taken out of public schools through vouchers, the less money there will be for academics, facilities, and yes, even football. The Texas High School Coaches Association came out against vouchers in February.
We could lose a lot of our star players. Vouchers will take that money away from the public schools, which also takes the money out of the community.
That's especially true in rural areas of the state.
A majority of counties in the state of Texas don't have a single private school in them. I'm worried about what's going to happen to these remote areas of the state where they depend entirely on the local public school.
In March, hundreds of Texans showed up to testify publicly on vouchers. The hearing lasted nearly 24 hours, with the majority of the testimony coming against the bill.
For those of you who are in the Republican Party like I am, it does violate the party principles, the priorities, the platform, the plank, all of it.
If you truly cared about the people of this state, you would not waste our time and our tax dollars on another voucher scam.
This bill is a skunk that we're trying to pass off as a kitty cat. What a load of garbage.
Pro-voucher lawmakers are also facing more pushback than ever before. recent poll found that nearly 2/3 of Texas voters oppose vouchers, including 70% of public school parents.
Looking at the masses of people that showed up at the Capitol yesterday, I really feel like people are tired of not being heard. I believe that our governor and several of his representatives feel like they are insulated and that they have managed to get reelected over and over again. But I believe that in doing what they're doing against the will of the people of this state, I think it's going to come back and bite them.
We all have to stand together, regardless of what state we're in, to protect this project of public schooling. If we're not careful, and if we don't defend and improve upon this project, we could see public education disappear in states like Texas and across the country.
Thank you so much for watching our video. If you'd like to see more stories like this one, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel to get more Perfect Union in your feed. And if you have any ideas for stories that you would like for us to investigate, just drop them in the comments below.
Yeah, so a few things I have to say when we talk about Greg Abbott, who is supporting the system for the voucher scam. It just seems kind of ridiculous on his face that, you know, it's like, why in the world would you try to say it is for the lower class or middle class when the recipients is normally the upper wealthy class? That just makes no sense. It seems like you're trying to, you know, lie and persuade people that what they see is not what's going on. So that's something that I see. And then with Jeff Yaz donating $12 million in 2024, he's not even a resident of Texas. I believe he's like in California or something of nature. If 12 million speak to anybody, because, you know, he might have donated 12 million to the cause, but about 6 million went into Abbott's pocket to do whatever he wants. You know, he just has to put it towards this, and then make it look like it's what it isn't. The system provides welfare to the rich. That's really what it is. And if you notice, the comment was made, you know, technically speaking, Elon Musk is a resident of Texas. So does that mean that he has the ability to be qualified for this program? And the person said yes, without hesitation. So it's basically, again, welfare for the rich, the people who don't even need it. You know, while we are trying to compromise people's health, meaning that if you get sick, you don't know what kind of sickness is going on, period. The CDC is not even there. But yeah, let's not get distracted about everything that's going on. And I'm going to try to do my best to focus on education primarily. The real big question is what's going to happen to those royal counties without private schools? Because if you're in a place like, I guess you could say Houston, Texas, because we're talking about Texas, they have plenty of private schools here and there. So in theory, if they were to get vouchers, then technically speaking, a lot of schools, a lot of the recipients that receives money can still continue some form of education, but the public schools suffer when it comes down to their athletics and their events that they're able to do as far as, you know, after school programs. Then let's not talk about special education. That right there seems like after a while, within 3 years, the education department of as far as special education is going to disappear. That means if your baby comes out, you know, kind of not like everyone else and needs extra attention, you know, the teachers that are presently there are going to have less resources, less teacher aides and people who specialize in special education. You know, because my thing is, if you've ever been in a classroom and you've seen kids that are, you know, have those needs, there's a reason why we do separate them at a certain point, because we try to get LRE, least restrictive environment, but the LRE it just makes so that we can't discriminate against them kids. But if there is not a special education room or a teacher to take care of them, the ones that really need someone, because like if someone can't control their bowels or something like that, and then they have special education teachers who actually change their diapers, like stuff like that, like you're not gonna catch a regular gen ed teacher do that. A regular gen ed teacher gonna be like, oh man, I'm gonna have to call your mama. Hey man, figure it out, boy. I don't know what to do. Now, what they will try to do, I feel that they're going to try to give that job to the general ed teacher, and the general ed teacher is going to basically feel like, I'm teaching 10th grade. Why am I feeling like I'm in kindergarten and I have to change babies' diapers? And that's really what's going to happen. Because when you think about education as a whole, the purpose of it is to teach everybody so they can at least be able to handle their own life. That's the true purpose of education. Like, everyone's not supposed to get a high school degree. A high school diploma. Everyone's not supposed to get a degree. Everyone's not supposed to get a trade. Everyone has specific roles. And I'm a firm believer that we do need ditch diggers. Everyone can't be millionaires, because if everyone's millionaires, then a millionaire is going to be the broke person. So I'm not one of these people to say everyone needs to be a capitalist to the point where we're trying to make every little penny. My understanding about life is there are people who really enjoy teaching. Teaching should not be a job where you're a millionaire. Firefighting shouldn't be a job where you're a millionaire. Policing shouldn't be, but those are all jobs that make our lives easier. Teaching, firefighting, policing. Because if something happens, you're going to call the police. If your house starts having a fire, you need a fire department. And as far as us growing, education is so much needed. All right. And of course, I'm kind of just simplifying those three, because I say in the medical field, technically speaking, you can become a millionaire. So that's one reason I didn't mention them. There's like, that's something that if you're in the medical field, technically speaking, you can get a lot more money than those three types of jobs I spoke of. But it's just as needed as those three. But you actually have the opportunity to make a lot of money. But let's go ahead and get back into it. This next one is Johanna Hayes questioning Linda McMahon on DEI.
Holocaust education in our schools is a DEI program.
I can look at whatever card.
Holocaust education, is it a DEI? You can have a press conference to say whatever you want. I just need a quick answer to this.
Your soliloquy.
Is Holocaust, because this is my time, is Holocaust education a DEI program?
I think I answered that with one.
I'm asking it again.
We should
just yes or no.
We should be able to teach.
My point is they are DEI programs, but you are making the argument for me, because when you respond to questions from my colleagues by saying that sounds like an issue for state legislatures, 49 million children in this country receive public education services. About 3 million children are in charter schools. There are not enough charter school slots. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Secretary, welcome to our committee. It's interesting, I took a lot of notes. I had prepared questions, but I think I'm going in a very different direction. We've heard other colleagues talk about the NAEP scores, and I heard you say that the president was angered and embarrassed by these, and I think we all should be. But when you disaggregate those scores, they clearly show that low-income students score significantly lower than their white and higher-income peers, and that is mostly in part to ongoing disparities in educational access and quality, which makes much of what I'm hearing today that much more relevant. You mentioned Connecticut. We both come from the state of Connecticut. Connecticut relies on property taxes to fund education. And we have one of the largest income gaps in the nation, which means by design or default, low-income students face multiple challenges, including limited access to resources and opportunities outside of schools, which is why I don't understand many of the decisions made in this budget. One of my colleagues asked, about collecting data on family composition and background. The Department of Education Office of Civil Rights is mandated by law to do that. I was pleased to hear you say that states do not the Department of Education does not control curriculum, instruction, instructional materials, the teachers that are hired, which makes your words contradictory because every argument you have is to put local control back into the states. But states already have local control, as anyone who has any knowledge or background of education would already know. The role of the Department of Education would be the civil rights enforcement of those local controls, which again, the irony of this budget zeroing out American history and civic education programs when you couldn't even answer a question about Ruby Bridges or the election of President Biden, which are as basic as it gets. So I really, really don't understand it. But you are making the argument for me because when you respond to questions from my colleagues by saying that sounds like an issue for state legislatures, that is why the Office of Civil Rights is necessary, because state legislatures made the decision that Ruby Bridges did not have the right to a free and appropriate high-quality public education. So you, Madam Secretary, are actually making the argument for the role of the department, not to dictate local curriculum instruction or instructional materials, but to make sure that those things are carried out by the department. That states follow the law, that they are doing those things. So 49 million children in this country receive public education services. About 3 million children are in charter schools. There are not enough charter school slots. So my questions are mainly focused on what about those other 46 million children? So it's mind-blowing. I hear you talk about safety, keeping students safe on school campuses, but not a word about the 390,000 students who have been affected by gun violence. I was in the classroom on the day Sandy Hook happened, and the federal government came in with almost $2 million to rebuild that community and provide programs for the surrounding communities. In your opening, I heard you mention student athletes and LGBTQ students twice, not one word. And even when my colleague asked you if you thought it was a public health crisis, you can't answer questions that affect the majority of students. So I'm not really sure. I am an educator by nature. I try to be supportive of what the Department of Education does because I need for you to succeed, for my students to succeed. But when you come in and say your final mission is to eliminate the department, it says to me that the 46 million children that are not receiving services do not matter. I've ran out most of my time, but this bill defunds literacy programs, eliminates 21st Century Community Learning Center, eliminates preschool grants for children with disabilities, eliminates, reduces funding for my students to succeed. But when you come in and say your final mission is to eliminate the department, it says to me that the 46 million children that are not receiving services do not matter. I've ran out most of my time, but this bill defunds literacy programs, eliminates 21st Century Community Learning Center, eliminates preschool grants for children with disabilities, eliminates, reduces funding for career and technical education, like all of these things. I'm going to ask you two really quick questions. Do you think that Holocaust education in our schools is a DEI program? There's no card for that. That's just yes or no.
Online is a vast universe.
I can look at whatever card.
Holocaust education, is it a DEI? You can have a press conference to say whatever you want. I just need a quick answer to
Your
this.
soliloquy.
Is Holocaust, because this is my time, is Holocaust education a DEI program?
No.
Is African American Studies a DEI program?
I think I answered that with one.
I'm asking it again.
We should
just yes or no?
We should be able to teach.
My point is they are DEI programs, both of them, because students need diversity, equity, and inclusion to understand their environments. So both Holocaust education and the teaching of African American history are important, which is why the state of Connecticut requires it in our social studies curriculum. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. You can't support one without supporting the other. And looking at what happens in the schools and actually deferring to teachers, parents who are on curriculum committees, local boards of education, and states who actually do the hard work and listening to what they say would be incredibly helpful in this role.
It's time to move on.
I yield back.
What unfolded in this hearing wasn't just a policy disagreement. It was a window into the deeper contradiction at the heart of today's conservative education agenda. Representative Johanna Hayes, a former National Teacher of the Year and lifelong educator, didn't come to this hearing to score political points. She came to defend something far more fundamental, the right of every child in America to learn the full truth about our history and to receive an education that is fair, equal and protected by civil rights law. At the center of this exchange was a deceptively simple question. Is Holocaust education a DEI program? The reason that question landed so hard is because it exposed the double standard Republicans have been trying to maintain. Holocaust education is widely supported, rightly so, because it teaches the dangers of hate, authoritarianism, and dehumanization. But when the same logic is applied to African American history, civil rights, or systemic inequality, suddenly those lessons are labeled divisive, woke, or political. Johanna Hayes made clear what many educators already know. You cannot support Holocaust education while attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion. They are rooted in the same moral foundation, teaching students to understand history, recognize injustice, and build a more inclusive society. Hayes also dismantled the myth of local control that conservatives repeatedly hide behind. States already control curriculum. Local school boards already make instructional decisions. The real role of the Department of Education, the role Republicans now want to eliminate, is to enforce civil rights protections when states fail their students. And history shows us exactly why that enforcement is necessary. Ruby Bridges did not need local control. She needed federal protection because state and local governments denied her the right to a quality education. Low-income students don't need political talking points. They need funding, resources, and equal opportunity. The exchange also highlighted what was missing from the administration's priorities. No serious concern for gun violence in schools, no urgency about underfunded classrooms, no acknowledgement of the 46 million students who depend on public education, not charter schools, not private vouchers, but public schools. Instead, we see literacy programs cut, community learning centers eliminated, preschool grants for children with disabilities slashed, career and technical education weakened, all while claiming to care about student outcomes. That contradiction is the point. When Johanna Hayes pressed Linda McMahon to answer yes or no questions, it wasn't about trapping her, it was about clarity. Because educators, parents, and students deserve honesty, and the American people deserve to know whether this administration believes some histories matter more than others, or whether truth itself has become conditional. Democrats are making a clear case. Education is not about ideology. It's about access, equity, and democracy. Teaching history is not indoctrination. Protecting civil rights is not radical, and refusing to erase the experiences of marginalized communities is not optional. It is essential. This moment wasn't just a confrontation. It was a reminder of what's at stake when we talk about education in America. Because when we stop teaching the truth, we don't protect children, we fail them.
The police officer at the scene told me to never sue the driver.
Yeah, there's not too much to say. Like the lady who wrapped it up, she really hit all the points. It's almost like she had one of them note takers. But yeah, the things I spotlight was the fact that there's not a lot of charter schools, not enough spots for them. And the fact that she could not answer, where she answered incorrectly, where she asked was Holocaust history DEI, she said no, and then she refused to answer is African American history DEI. She refused to answer it. So let's go ahead and what I'm gonna do instead of me going through it, because the lady kind of wrapped it up and hit a bunch of the points I was gonna hit up. The gun violence, the fact that it's like they're really not caring about that, so they're allowing our kids to still have that type of fear where, you know, the emo kid comes in, quote unquote, and does stuff to the other kids, or just any kind of violence that can occur, as well as the 46 million people that are affected by the literacy program, the community programs, the preschool, special education programs, and career and tech training that's not been there. Honestly, we do need to have more of that technical training done in the public school sector, as opposed to just after school, after high school. Yeah, let's go ahead. I mean, instead of just college. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. This right here is Linda McMahon visiting Rhode Island school.
Katie, thank you. The country's top education official making a stop in Rhode Island today as part of her tour across all 50 states.
U.S. Education Secretary Linda McMahon visiting Exeter West Greenwich Regional High School this morning, where she toured classrooms, met with school leaders, and emphasized the importance of career and technical programs.
Sophia Szabo was there and joins us now with how it went. Sophia?
Well, according to the secretary, President Trump tasked her with leading one promise to a home run, and that is returning education to the states. Today, she says she was here to listen and learn from students, educators, and parents and find out what works in the districts and what doesn't. She's not your average EWG art student, but she's still here to learn.
The important thing is for me is getting on the ground, visiting schools, states.
U.S. Education Secretary Linda McMahon tours the halls and pops into classrooms. She speaks to students and teachers.
And then we can identify whether it predict.
It's all part of her Return Education to the States tour.
I honestly believe that once parents or communities or teachers or whoever find out really what the goal is with returning education to the states, and it is more autonomy in the state.
Rhode Island Commissioner of Education Angelica Infante Green is also here. She's been outspoken against President Trump's promise to dismantle the Department of Education.
You know, we can agree to disagree on certain things. I do think that the department is necessary, and I will stand by that. But I also think that my job is to work with everyone that's going to bring resources into our state and make sure that our kids in our state shines and continues to shine.
While Secretary McMahon is set on keeping that promise, she tells us collaboration across the aisle is important in getting it done.
This absolutely has to be bipartisan. Teaching our kids is not one party or the other. This is the future of our country. It is the future of the world.
Secretary McMahon's tour will continue throughout the year, and she will visit grade levels from pre-K to community college and local universities. So far, she hasn't made a stop in Massachusetts. Reporting in West Greenwich, Sophia Szabo, 12 News.
Yeah, so in theory, returning autonomy to the school state doesn't really make sense because the Department of Education does not stop the state from making the rules and regulations and what has to happen in that state. So it's like if you don't know better, that sounds very good, and sounds like a pure type of thing to do. If you know better, it's like, man, they are really trying to put the wool over everyone's eyes. But that's neither here nor there. I hope y'all learned something. We're gonna go and deep dive more into more of how we can stop this movement. I'm just hoping that I'm just hoping that we can last longer than what we are, because I just see that if our kids and us, like eventually, if every kid wants to be an influencer, we're going to end up with nothing. If every kid does not value education, we're going to end up lower in the status of all the other countries. Infrastructure is going to go down. It's going to be a lot more than just infrastructure is going to go down. Our humane part of us, our empathy is going to be gone, because one thing I feel that education teaches us, even at it teaches us, especially after school, by just going somewhere as far as university or something, is supposed to expose you to others that may have not grown up like you, and therefore you now have friends and that you normally would not even be around if you didn't go to the college. That's also one of the biggest reasons, where it's like networking. It's you getting into that sweet spot of your life where you are responsible for yourself, but you still have the backing of your parents. And then you can also meet and greet other people who come from different places. You learn things, and that's one thing that I have to say that I really hate, that education has been more of a scam. I'm gonna say it like that, a scam when it comes down to the price tag. The price tag is way too high for what they provide. Now, that is something I have to say. Now, I'm not against education. I'm just against those who are profiting the way they're profiting, being dishonest about the price tag. But at the same time, it's like if you don't have to get that. So I'm not saying that, stop it because it's so high. Because honestly, there are tech jobs that you can do, technician jobs you can do that doesn't require the standard universal university bachelor's degree or master's degree. So somebody who wants to do A&P, or somebody who wants to be an electrician, or somebody who wants to be a plumber, or somebody who wants to work on green energy, it's a bunch of things that you should be able to do, that you should be able to figure out how to do within a year, where it shouldn't take 4 to 10 years. Because yeah, that doctor made millions, but that doctor had to spend 300 something thousand, 400 something thousand for the education. So it's like a give and take thing. So outside of that, Epstein files we got to get back into. So I've been waiting for a lot of the Epstein stuff to come out. And if you've been paying attention, December 19th was supposed to be the time, and they finally got a lot of it out January, like the 20th or 21st or whatever. But yeah, let's go ahead and we're gonna close it out. I hope to see y'all later. Let's go ahead and do it.
Actually, we're all tickled to hear you say that. Quite frankly, watching Donnie beat Nazis to death is as close we ever get to going to the movies. Donnie!
Yeah?
Guy's German here wants to die for country. Oblige him.
She's after killing Jews. Bravery.
It's a clean ball. Momentum is certainly shifting toward the crazy Hawaiian, yeah. All even going into round 3.
Into the barely legal type. Like, he liked 15-year-old girls. And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts. That he wasn't into, like, 8-year-olds.